Happy, what is it, Wednesday, Tuesday? What day of the week is it? I can't even believe it's May, but I'm really appreciative that you guys are spending some time with us. This is our final live class together. And I know a lot of you will be participating in year 2, but I wanted to share before we dive into the content today, just a couple of announcements to wrap up year 1. All right. While we're chatting here, can I just ask Elizabeth, would you mind admitting if anybody else hops in to the webinar?
Yes, will do.
Awesome, thanks. Okay, so let's first just quickly chat about your Catchafire subscription. So we saw so much great activity, projects being completed through your Catchafire subscription, which was free for the entire year 1 program. Great news, we are not turning that off. So you still, regardless of if you're participating in year 2 or not, you are still going to have access to your Catchafire subscription for the 2024 and into 2025 season. Great news for you. And just as a reminder, this is not just for your development team. This could be for your finance team, your executive leadership team, whoever needs to get stuff done and doesn't have the capacity to do it. Catchafire might be a great resource for that coworker or team member. All right, so Catchafire is staying on. You can continue to use it throughout 2024, and we encourage you to do so. Next, wanted to let y'all know that we will be sending an email tomorrow to everyone with a required survey. It's going to look very much like our mid-year survey. It's really for us to just check in with you, capture that end-of-year feedback, really to continue to make our resources and programs like this better. We do ask that everybody that can fill it out. It will be sent to all admins associated with your organization page on Colorado Gives. All right, just a quick update on some of the amazing things that we observed throughout year 1. The thing that stuck out the most out of all the positivity that came out was that where we saw the most revenue, increase in revenue and overall revenue on the Colorado Gives platform is when nonprofits are using the embeddable donation form, which is really exciting because that's a really easy form to embed on your external website. So we know that donors want to give and stay on your external website. And so if you have any questions about how you can leverage the embeddable donation form all year long for specific campaigns, or maybe just for Colorado Gives Day, I'm happy to chat with you about that. But some exciting things that we learned about what's driving revenue. If you are curious about what number 2 was, it's matching grants. So we know that matching grants work, and we're going to talk about that a little bit in our content today. All right, last one here is access to the recordings for Level Up. And so some great news about access to the recordings for year 1. You can access those on the Colorado Gives YouTube channel at any time. We have a dedicated channel and list of year 1 recordings. So you can take a look at those or share any of those with your team members. For year 2, and again, regardless of if you are or are not participating in the Level Up program for year 2, you're going to have access to all of the webinar recordings that we complete for year 2 as well. So we're going to open that up, and so you can continue to reap the benefits of year 2, even if maybe you don't have the capacity this year to participate. Those will also be available on our YouTube channel. All right, and last but certainly not least, I wanted to share just some summary stats with you guys because they're very impressive. So as a reminder, we had 3 total cohorts, and it was a little over 100 nonprofits, 150 if you count all of cohort 3. And out of those 3 cohorts, for Catchafire specifically, there was 2,345 hours donated to nonprofits in the Level Up program, and almost $500,000 saved in projects and time completed through the Catchafire volunteers. So some pretty epic numbers just around Catchafire. I also wanted to just update you guys about what we were seeing through the Colorado Gives platform. So again, across all of the Level Up program, we saw about a little over 10,000 unique donors giving to your nonprofits, 16,000 donations, and over $2 million donated. And we did see year-over-year increase from 2022 to 2023 for those who participated. So just wanted to say a hearty congratulations and a big thank you for participating this year. Yay! All right. So I'm going to turn it over to Michael so we can dive into the content, and I'll see everybody in the chat for today.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jordan. And before I get to the next slide, I just wanted to also highlight this embeddable donation form. That's so interesting, Jordan, for you to talk about how that was really the most successful kind of tool that was used by all of you nonprofits. And yeah, I mean, it just speaks also to the importance of your websites in terms of your marketing and engagement in the universe. People come to your site, and when they're on your site, they're inspired by the content. They feel moved to make the gift. So to have these donation forms embedded right there inside the site, inside your navigation available, is really just a critical strategy. And I'm glad folks have embraced that, and good to see that the that the revenue sort of shows that as well. So just a good reminder of the importance of connecting the dots between websites that are available, traffic coming to the websites, and then having these forms that are that are donated for easy donation. So that's great. Love to see that. Okay, let's take a quick peek at what we're going to cover today in our final live class. We're going to start out with just a conversation about analytics. We're actually going to be looking through a couple of benchmark reports. We're going to make it as engaging as possible. Hopefully, lots of learning for folks. We're going to then talk a little bit about how to work with influencers for fundraising and what are some of the trends in that area. Hopefully, to inspire all of you to do more work in that area. And then we'll continue on with how to engage and work with your board members. And then finally wrap up with how to engage with business partners. So 3 and 4 kind of continuations of conversations we've had a little bit over the last few months. Hopefully wrap it all together. And thank you for the suggestions folks had last time. And then, of course, a reminder, post anytime in Zoom chat. Jordan is our Zoom chat monitor, so to speak. So that's great. Okay, our usual housekeeping. We don't have to go over this. You're all well trained. Great. So let's jump into analytics for fundraising. So what I wanted to do today was to talk about the recent release of this annual benchmark report, which is published by actually a consulting agency called M&R Strategic Services. They've been publishing these benchmark reports for, I think it's probably a decade now. And it's basically a series of, they study 200 to 225 nonprofit participants every single year of all different sizes. They're very careful about making sure they have a mix of small, medium, and large. And then, as you can see from this game on graphic, they basically look at these 6 different areas: fundraising, email messaging, mobile messaging, advertising, social media, and website performance. And they basically study a whole bunch of different data points, metrics, and analytics, and they put it together in lots of really easy to use charts and narrative. And the thing about this benchmark report is that you will not be bored reading this thing, because it's really a work of genius. The writers they have doing this are just so much fun. And I have to say, I read this thing from cover to cover every year because I'm an analytics nerd. So, but more importantly, there's just so much learning in here, and they make the learning just really fun with their narrative. So anyway, after we've spent some time here, I encourage you to go download it at mrbenchmarks.com. It's totally free. This is the 2024 edition. And like I said, just really a great resource to have every year. You can use it to measure all kinds of things. So we're going to do that right now and sort of dive in. So it's broken out into these 6 different areas, as I mentioned before. We're just going to go through each one of them, and hopefully we can explore some of these themes. So the key findings is always a fun kind of thing that gives me a shiver every year, just because they talk about really the top level things in digital fundraising and digital engagement. And so people are always like diving into find like the key items that are so relevant to them. So let's just run through these over here on the left. I made the font as large as I could so that people could read them. So so these are the things that actually jumped out at me. So monthly giving was probably the thing that was the most interesting to me, which is that in the year 2023, because it covers the previous year, I mean, it grew by 6% on average across all the nonprofits that were studied. So this is a really interesting statistic, because it just shows that, even though overall fundraising revenue was down about 1%, across most nonprofits, monthly giving really went up. It's connects a lot with how people get do things in retail. Their subscriptions, but people they're eager to make donations to nonprofits, but they're obviously interested in spreading out those payments, so to speak. But it also shows not just practical things like that, but people are still committed to nonprofits, and they want to make donations year round, which is, I think, always a sign of trust and of individuals really wanting to stay connected to you. So that's really an interesting finding. The other finding that sort of slightly connects with it is that for those folks that do postal mail fundraising, that revenue was actually down also 6%. So up by monthly giving, down by in postal, so that you can see. And also I'll just put this, the email revenue down by 7%. So you can sort of see these sort of like moving trends that are happening in fundraising. So postal mail is still a factor, but it's declined as a proportion of total revenue. Email revenue has also declined, even though revenue from let me deal with that 16% in just a second. So, and the email revenue decline is generally associated with the fact that it's harder and harder to get email delivered to people. There's more and more email going to spam. There's more and more people who said, I'm getting just too much email. So, and it's also more difficult to get people to open messages than before. So, it's trickier to do it. But it's still nevertheless a factor. When you look at online revenue as a whole, 16%, email still represents 16% of all the online revenue that comes in. So you probably have revenue from lots of other places online. People come to your website, people click on something they see in your social media, people hit a QR code, go to your website, all this kind of stuff. But it still represents 16%, so not a trivial amount of money. So we don't want you to stop trying to raise money from your email campaigns, but it's just very interesting, the 16%, and this number has been kind of basically declining a little bit, because email, I think, has gotten more in trouble in the last few years than ever before. It's more difficult to be successful, but it still represents, as you can see, a pretty important thing. On this next item, advertising spend has increased by 13%. I know that not a lot of you do a lot of advertising, but I just wanted to put it in here just as a mental note, that because basically email is more of a difficult medium, and also because postal mail has been declining, people are turning to these other digital channels to reach donors, to reach supporters. And that's what this advertising spend represents. Nonprofits, especially mid-size and larger, are moving some of their time and effort and capacity and skills in using sort of advertising techniques. And we'll talk about that further a little bit more. 50% of nonprofits work with social media influencers. Just a fantastically interesting statistic. Again, how do you get out and reach supporters? How do you expand your realm? How do you get out there more? Well, people are working more and more with social media influencers. And again, this is part of that same trend of like Postal mail decline, email revenue also decline. And so as a result, nonprofits are increasing their ad spends, working more with social media influencers. So hopefully there's a lot of bells going off for some of you as you think about your future. Social media, these are the key findings. Facebook has continued to grow as a place to reach more people. So this is growth in likes. So 6% on average across nonprofits. And look at this one, TikTok growth, 112% average growth across all nonprofits. So the fastest growing social media channel right now. So that's really an interesting one. And then finally, two more items. Mobile device web traffic has now peaked over the 50% mark. So it's just so important, to remember that our websites, even our emails, they really have to be fully mobile visible, mobile compliant. And so this is just a good number to keep in mind. We're now over the 50% mark. So really just so important to have that balance. But however, when you look at how people make donations to nonprofits, still 70% of revenue is coming from desktop devices, which is also a good reminder that it's great to send emails, important to have content on social media and so on, but it's also so important to make sure that your website looks good on larger screens, that your email looks good on larger screens. So important to make sure that you create that balance between the desktop experience and also the mobile experience. So these are my top key findings that I took away from this. I think there's a lot of great learnings in here. And again, it may not be exactly what you yourselves are experiencing if you were able to calculate all these numbers, because these are averages, but I love the way M&R does their research across their 225 groups. Okay, we're going to keep going forward. So just a couple of more detailed items around fundraising, since we're here to learn about digital fundraising. So there's a few more numbers in here that I thought were kind of interesting. Online revenue as a whole declining by 1%. So this is consistent with general fundraising also declined by a couple of points. 2023 was generally considered to be a pretty tough year in fundraising. So this is reflected in there. The number, so here's that number we talked about before. So the number of sort of one-time gifts declining by 5%, but the numbers of monthly gifts increasing by about 6%. So that's that kind of shift that we're seeing among folks. So it's either people wanting to spread out their donations so they make the burden a little easier, but it's also, people still being loyal to the causes that they believe in. They recognize the work that you're doing. They recognize its importance. And so when someone, as many of you know, as all of you know, when someone becomes a monthly donor, that's a very important relationship for you to cultivate. And a sign of someone who's really leaning in to support you. They're not just a one-time gift and off they go. They're really someone who wants to stick around with you for the year, for 2 years, for 3 years. So that growth in monthly giving, hopefully many of you are seeing that as well. And as you see those monthly donors come in through your donation page, really just remember you'd be thanking them throughout the year, acknowledging them, and just really welcoming in there. Monthly giving, yeah. So and also in 2023, monthly giving just now representing as an average about a third of all online revenue. So 2/3 of folks giving more like one time, about 1/3. Again, this isn't average, so it may be really different from you, but it was just an interesting data point for me to see. We talked about this already. Postal mail fundraising decline, which doesn't mean that it's completely vanished. I'm sure many of you are still doing postal mail appeals. You could be sending out postcards with QR codes. You could be sending out an envelope with inserts. You could be sending out an impact report at certain times of the year. I know for a lot of folks, this is a really important part of their fundraising strategy. If you're working in some rural areas where the internet's not great, postal mail can be really important. If you work with an older audience, older donors, seem to like postal mail a lot. So again, we don't want to be completely abandoning that, but it is interesting to note a decline in that area. Here's another good statistic. December giving in 2023 represented on average 26% of online revenue. I think we all know this because we work so hard. The work that Colorado Gives does to support all of you during that critical time of the year. But you can see when you do the numbers, when you do the analytics, 26% of online revenue. I know that's a lot of pressure for a 1 month experience, but it's also a great reminder that pretty much all nonprofits have to go through that ring of fire in November and December, Giving Tuesdays, the last couple of weeks of the year, getting through all of those holidays and so on. So it's really just an interesting reminder of how important that fundraising period is. And even more stark, December 31, 5% of all revenue raised in 2023. I mean, I'm a practicing consultant, fundraising consultant, so I feel this myself all the time with all of my clients, and I'm sure that all of you feel it as well. But it's also just, I find it just like heartening to see it as a benchmark, as a statistic from this M&R work, that we're all kind of in this together, trying to make this last month of the year really work for us.
Well, and of course,
and then finally,
oh, sorry, I
please go
just
ahead,
wanted to
Jordan.
say,
Yeah.
I love these numbers too. And of course, from our perspective, to me, that means, oh my gosh, how are we further incentivizing and speaking to donors in December? So of course, there's Giving Tuesday, there's Colorado Gives Day, and then there's that push towards end of year. It's, are you setting up a match so you can excite and reward donors, since we know this is one of the biggest time periods of the year? Are you asking the folks that gave during Colorado Gives Day to give again? Don't be afraid to ask again, because if you're not asking and they are intending to give a gift, they're going to give it to someone else. So these numbers excite me, and I think it's very similar to what we see on the Colorado Gives platform. Of course, huge numbers in December, and then a big rush right at the end of the year too. So we'll definitely be focusing more on end of year strategy for future trainings. Just wanted to interject that.
Yeah, that's super helpful, Jordan. Yeah, that is great to look at that. And then this final statistic which is sort of like a personal obsession of mine over many years of being a fundraising consultant, the average donation page conversion rate. So, for every 100 people that come to your page, the average number of people who make that donation is only 11%. So what is that? 89% of folks just say, not interested right now, or not interested today, and they leave. This is like just one of those things that just reminds me of like how, just how sometimes the challenge comes right down to that very last page. How can we make our donation pages just really interesting and engaging? And so I think working with Colorado Gives, thinking about what you can do to those pages to improve how they look, text you can put on them. Also, when you embed them in websites, you can do more work with adding photos, adding language. So really, just a really good reminder that even at the donation page, you can make an impact right at that exact moment. So just a great reminder. Okay, I'm going to pause there for some more water to see if there's any other comments in the chat or any questions from folks, or if Jordan wants to add anything else.
Yeah, I don't think so. I just put a comment in there. I was just chatting with a rural nonprofit the other day, and they lean heavily on postal mail, and they won't stop doing that. But what they're doing is rethinking what the content of that is. So giving folks the ability to continue to donate via check, and also adding now a QR code that goes specifically to their monthly giving page, because they're asking folks to set up a monthly recurring gift. So if any of those check writers want to convert, it's a great passive way to give them multiple options. So just wanted to, I just had that conversation yesterday, so I thought I would share, because we talk a lot about digital fundraising, but that doesn't mean the other channels of communications and marketing don't still exist and can't complement what's happening online.
That's so interesting that you made that example of the QR code. The QR code, was resurrected, during the COVID pandemic for all kinds of obvious reasons. And it's great to see it sort of continue on as a great tool. It connects channels together, right? QR codes on signage, QR codes in postcards, QR codes wherever you can think of putting them. So just really great. That's a great example, Jordan. Thank you for sharing it. Okay, great. I'm going to just keep going through some of these analytics from M&R. Hopefully there's more stuff that can inspire you. So email messaging, also a really important place that M&R looks for benchmarks from these 225 nonprofits. Email list size increase on average 7%. So even though, we've said that email revenue has been in decline for fundraising, you still have to keep working pretty hard to grow the list. Remember, if you're not growing the list, it will get smaller just as a result of churn, people's email addresses no longer working, closing down. So it's just it's just so important to keep growing email lists through any means necessary. So I think this is hopefully an inspiration and a good reminder for all of you of the importance of that. There's a couple of other kind of numbers in here. I don't want to delve in too hard with all this math, but it basically just helps us to understand just how much money gets raised from fundraising emails. And the basic takeaway here is that, people are having a harder time raising money from email. That doesn't mean it's not important. It just means that it's becoming a smaller piece of the pie. So about a 20% decline in 1 year. That's a pretty big decline in my book as a fundraiser. But if anything, it's just, keep pushing, keep growing those lists, keep getting the word out. It's pretty important to do that. Average emails sent per subscriber, 59 messages were sent out per subscriber on average across these 225 nonprofits, 12% increase. So, I don't know. This is always a great benchmark number that I look at. And so when I work with some of my other clients, I'm like, so how many emails did you send last year for every single subscriber? And they're like, oh, maybe about 14 and maybe about 20. And I'm just like, well, you're nowhere near the average, which is a heck of a lot larger. And you can also note the increase, which is that because email hasn't been as performing as well in the past, a lot of nonprofits are increasing the amount of email they're sending, which, in a slight way kind of compounds the problem, but it is the result of a little bit of that email crisis that exists out there. So just a really interesting set of trends. And then if you want to get really nerdy on analytics, this is this famous email fundraising response rate. So when you send out emails to do fundraising, like during a spring appeal, during your year end, this 0.07 number means, it's basically what response you can expect to get. I've been using this number literally for over a decade. On the back of the envelope, when someone says, hey, I've got 20,000 emails, how much money do you think I should be able to raise from that? Well, you just do the math and you can sort of do this estimate. So this is across over 200 nonprofits. So it helps us to understand, just how well this email realm is useful for fundraising. And just very importantly, it has decreased. So you get the decrease over here in the amount of money raised, you get a decrease in here in the response rate. So again, the trends are all pretty much the same. Email fundraising is less performing as a fundraising medium, but it's still important that we hold on to this medium, that we keep growing our lists, and that we keep using it both for cultivation and fundraising. All of those things have to fit together. I'm looking at a few fun comments in the chat, so thanks all for putting those in there. I'm going to go on to the next one, unless Jordan, you want to add anything more about email messaging, but I don't see you.
No,
you are still there.
This is so great. This is interesting. It makes me wonder if they're I assume measuring the direct mail coming from nonprofits. So I wonder if we start empowering our supporters to do the peer-to-peer fundraising, if direct email from nonprofits isn't seeing as high as a return, if we lean more into peer-to-peer, maybe that will be more effective because they're working out to, they're reaching out to their friends and family through email. So that was kind of the thought that came up. I love this. These are great numbers. Thank you.
Yeah, and I know that that the M&R folks have a great interest in peer-to-peer. I would love for them to do more analytics work in that area. It's sort of like this other channel that's sort of finally gaining its own these days. So I'd love to see more work done in that area. Great. So let's dig into a couple website items, and then we'll keep moving on. So as I mentioned before, looks like about 52% of all web traffic is now coming from mobile devices. Good reminder, make sure your websites look good on all types of devices, device sizes, large, small phones, big screens, everything else. Just so important to do that. As I mentioned before, 78% of when people make donations, 78% of those are noted coming from larger desktop devices. So people using laptops, people using plug-in screens, people using those larger devices. So again, just so important to make sure that all of your pages on your website are going to be clearly visible, viewable, without any flaws. And again, Colorado Gives, all their tools are fully mobile responsive, but if something's not quite working well, you can get in touch with Jordan or the team, and they can help you kind of figure that kind of stuff out. But just something always to be thoughtful of. This was an interesting statistic that I captured here. 67% of nonprofits are now offering PayPal as a payment method. So in addition to things like credit cards, debit cards, 67%, just really noting that PayPal is now just a must-have really for giving. Not everybody has a credit card. Not everybody has the right kind of debit card. PayPal is sort of an alternative giving channel. So just really important to see that. I thought that, and that number has been growing like literally 20% a year. So it's just really nice to see that number there. And also a reminder that when you're using these fundraising tools, the Colorado Gives and others, it's so important to make sure that you're gonna have these payment methods available. And we talked a moment ago about this 11% donation page conversion rate. Okay, those were just a few of the top things from the web. Anything else, Jordan, that you can think of on this topic that we might want to add here?
No, I added something in chat just to confirm that we're seeing about 50-50 of desktop and mobile, but slowly, leaning towards mobile. So I loved those numbers. I do also want to confirm that we are seeing more and more donors selecting PayPal from within the Colorado Gives platform. So PayPal's built into Colorado Gives as a payment option. And so we are seeing a lot more folks use that. And we don't know if that's because donors are preferring it or because nonprofits are converting more to using our forms with the built-in payment methods instead of having that big old PayPal button on their external website. So just some fascinating things that I can connect back to Colorado Gives. So this is great. Thank you.
Well, PayPal, which also, by the way, as you know, owns Venmo, has been working just really hard to compete with banks to make their payment systems available more globally. Venmo is still a pretty small proportion of giving, but it's definitely growing. Hopefully next year when we come back, we'll see Venmo start to appear a little bit more.
Well,
there.
and just
I don't know if you can.
I want to just mention, we don't have Venmo turned on coloradogives.org because it's actually more expensive than PayPal. Right. And nonprofits don't get the same donor data that they do through PayPal or that they do through Colorado Gives. So coloradogives.org gives you the most donor data available. PayPal gives you second, and then Venmo gives you even less. So just wanted to clarify from our perspective how we're managing those payment processors and how we're working with Venmo to see if we can get them turned on, but we got to keep that price as low as possible for nonprofits.
Absolutely. Athena, to answer your question, Zelle is it's like a company that works with banks. So it's sort of like this private company, but they have this alliance with all these banks. And it's actually the way that banks are, believe it or not, fighting back with PayPal and Venmo to try to keep people more on their banking systems. It's just such a bizarre universe of competition. So PayPal also bought Venmo a few years ago, and they're little by little improving the Venmo tools. Like there's now Venmo for nonprofits. But just to follow up on Jordan's point, like there will probably be a time in a few years when Venmo's pricing will most likely start matching up with PayPal, and they'll make the tools a little bit more seamless. I don't think we're quite there yet. Just want to highlight also over here with my mouth. I didn't put these numbers in here, but like Apple Pay and Google Pay also starting to creep in a lot more. It looks like about 38% of nonprofits and 30% are either using Apple Pay or Google Pay. Again, these are just mobile payment systems. But if you go to a nonprofit webpage, you click the donate button, and you're still on your telephone, usually, if the nonprofit offers Apple Pay or Google Pay, those options like will show up on the phone only, right? They won't show up when you're over on your laptop, but they will show up on the phone. And this does seem to imply that that more and more nonprofits are making those payment systems available. I know that when I look at the statistics from my nonprofit clients, I see just like maybe like under 5% of all payments happening through these systems. So still not as popular as all the other ones, but probably growing little by little in popularity. Okay, I just want to spend a very small amount of time on digital advertising, like literally like 3 minutes, but because I know that most of you don't do this, but this was just to plant this seed in your mind. So as I mentioned at the very beginning, 13% growth in how nonprofits are using this medium. It's partly a reaction to the fact that less money being raised through email, and so money is sort of being moved over into digital ads. So for smaller organizations, they're placed, these ads are being placed on things like over on social platforms, Facebook and Meta, Instagram, make it really easy to have ads, or they'll actually work with an ad agency or an ad group and help get these ads out more broadly. When smaller orgs are doing digital advertising, they're usually using it to promote fundraising campaign. Also, people are doing ads on search engines and social media. So search engines, as you know, the Google ad program is available for free to most nonprofits, which gets you into search engines. So that's what this sort of represents, this whole universe of doing that. I know that it requires some staff time, maybe some volunteers. You might need help from Catchafire or some other folks to help you get this deployed. But it really it's continuing, I think, to work. You can see down here that there is sort of revenue to be raised from spending money. So for every dollar nonprofits on average spend on advertising, they're able to raise about $2.70 in revenue. So this is called the return on ad spend. Again, a lot of ad jargon here, which I didn't really want to get into, but it's basically the point that this medium is valuable as a way to do fundraising, but it is also a medium that requires a big investment of staff time, capacity, learning. And I think as small nonprofits, become more mid-size, they tend to gravitate into this digital advertising stuff. But I think at the very least, if you're making investments in search advertising and using all the ad tools on social media, those are usually the easiest and most accessible ones for nonprofits to be able, smaller nonprofits like many of you, to be able to use. Anything else from you, Jordan, that you think we can mention with digital advertising before I move on?
I don't think so. I just shared a link for some Catchafire projects that are related to advertising, Facebook ad setup, Google ad setup, brochure writing. So there's some available predetermined in Catchafire. And then, of course, you can set up your own unique projects and match with a volunteer. So if this is your first time maybe investing this year in advertising, you can certainly lean on some experts at Catchafire.
Gotcha. Sarah, noting your comment, if ads are working for your nonprofit, please email me. Can I ask you to come on air? Is that because you're thinking of doing a project and you want want some inspiration from other people? What are you thinking here?
Hi, yeah. So I'm just kind of open to anything that works. Um, but I like really knowing from other nonprofits, especially like locally in the area. And then kind of we're like a small, medium-sized nonprofit. So just kind of being mindful about how we're spending our time.
That's great. That's great. I mean, I'm actually curious if folks wanted to just post in the chat. Um, does anybody have a Google ad grant that they're using for search advertising? I'd just be really interested if anybody on the call is doing that. As you know, Google ad grants are free from Google, and they let you place ads for your nonprofit inside the Google search platforms. I've seen that work really well for folks just to drive general traffic to your website. So I'm curious to hear what folks have to say about that. Great. Okay, I'm just going to wrap up this. I just tried to think of like if I had to just give you the top 6 or 7 recommendations for the best analytics to track. So I just want to throw these here just for your strategies and thinking going forward. I mean, I'm always encouraging people to grow their lists. So I think this is a great analytical element to track. You can track it month to month. You can track it every quarter, every year, and also just important to figure out like hey, what are the best sources for? Is it like from our website that people are signing up? Are they signing up when they see us at the farmers market? Try to be aware and learn as much as you can about what's the best way to grow your list. Email list growth from search. So again, this is the comment that I made before. If most nonprofits get at least half of their traffic from people finding them through search engines. So just so important to learn, where the list growth is coming from. If someone comes to your website, we've talked about this in previous sessions. Make sure that there's a big old email subscription invitation to folks. Subscribe to get our newsletter, subscribe to get our updates. Just so important to capture that traffic as an email subscriber. My third favorite analytics is, of course, always the email click-through rate. As you folks now know, open rates are less reliable now over some changes in industry, but the click-through rate in my book is always the most useful metric of people's attention span. So whether you're sending out a newsletter, whether you're sending out email updates, email campaigns, advocacy campaigns, whatever it might be, just keep a really close look on your click-through rate. When people click on something in your email, that is the ultimate way to measure people's interest and attention span. So this is usually one of my highest analytics item to be tracking. Social media growth trends, also, just super important, like where's the growth happening? Which channel is working? What's hot this year, this month, this quarter? If you get something really happening that's exciting in your social media channels, getting that, just really paying attention to what's happening for you there. Donation page conversion rate. Again, if you're able to measure this, which is not always easy, can you do better than 11%? Is always my question when I talk to my clients. But also not to agonize over it. Donation pages can be tricky to really do a lot better than 11%. And again, if you have a list of whatever 10,000 email addresses, and in any given campaign you get 100 donations, it's not that hard to figure out what is your email fundraising response rate. The average nationally across all size nonprofits, 0.07. So again, great analytics to track. It helps you to understand how well you're doing as an email fundraiser. And then finally, of course, donor retention rate. Retaining your donors, always the most important strategic consideration for you. So how are you able to do year to year? Just so important. So hopefully these give you some ideas for where to put your attention, where to focus. Again, I'm sure if some of you put this list together yourselves, you might change the order. You might add some different things. But hopefully something analytics is something that you can keep thinking through. Okay, I'm going to just take a look at the chat for a second, and then I am going to jump in just for a quick walk through the influences for fundraising, and then we'll move over to some topics that Jordan wants to talk about. So the other area that the M&R report focuses on, of course, is social media channels and social media influencers. And I'm so glad that M&R decided to focus on this year, because they've not been measuring influencers before. So I found this really, really interesting. And so, as you know, just a quick definitional concept, social media influencers, these are people that are out there in the universe on social media. They have their own subscription channels or free channels, pages. They produce videos, they do posts, they do photos. They gather an audience on a certain topic. They may be individuals, they may be employees of a company, they could be foundation people, they could be public officials, they're really everywhere. But the generic term for them is that they're an influencer, meaning that they reach more people than probably you can, and they have their own channels of reach. And so we want to be trying to work with them as nonprofits. And it turns out that, through this study, 50% of all nonprofits work with some type of influencer in 2023. So this is just a good note. It's like, this is clearly a channel that works as a marketing and outreach and fundraising technique. So really something, hopefully, that you all can lean into and can embrace. And the types of those influencer partnerships, 17% are paid partnerships, meaning the nonprofit is literally paying an influencer to post some kind of content. After all, nonprofits pay for all kinds of things. We pay for ads, we pay for things in newspapers, we pay for mailings. So this is another type of paid outreach and marketing. And then about 30% do a mix of paid and unpaid. So again, just really interesting to see these numbers when you think about them across nonprofits. So just a couple of other concepts here to think about. When we sort of like ask that, well, what type of social channels are nonprofits prioritizing or using these days? So this is one of the classic measurements. For every 1,000 email addresses, nonprofits have over 1,000 Facebook likes, 527 Twitter X likes, 251 on Instagram, 36 on TikTok. So remember, even though TikTok is the fastest growing one, it's still like pretty low on the overall kind of scale of what nonprofits are doing. So Facebook's still far and away the most useful, successful channel for nonprofits to be using on social media. Twitter and X, about half of that. And then Instagram and TikTok a little bit lower. I mean, this reflects, a decade of growth of these channels. But as you can see, TikTok quickly picking up. As you know, TikTok mostly a video medium. Influencers are much more visible there as they are also on Instagram. So just really interesting to see that. And then there's a quick little chart here that I thought was interesting. The question was, what platform did you activate influencer campaigns on? So you can see TikTok and Instagram are where the influencers are the most active, a little bit on Twitch as well. But this sort of tells you, where you might be focusing your attention. And then just one final slide here. I did not know that influencers could be divided up into these different categories, but you can have things called nano influencers, right? Between 1,000 to 10,000 followers, micro, mid-tier, macro. I'm not sure what the difference is between these, but anyway, but it just goes to show just how how much work gets done in trying to understand these. And I think when they asked nonprofits, you can see like most nonprofits working mostly with these nano and micro influencers. So a little bit here at the lower end of the scale. But again, if you're working with a nano influencer that's got up to 10,000 followers, that's a large group of people to be reaching, or between 10 and 100,000 followers. So these are the spaces really that nonprofits are working most intensely. And again, half of nonprofits, again, using these influencers to promote a fundraising campaign, a fundraising appeal, could be year end, could be something seasonal, could be an upcoming event, a gala, something that they're doing. 75% nonprofits use them for some kind of an advocacy or volunteer campaign, 79% education or persuasion. So it just gives you a really interesting snapshot of how nonprofits are working with influencers, and hopefully gives you some encouragement that this is a channel that you could be successful at. Okay, I will pause there since I'm being mindful of time and see if there's any other comments, Jordan, that you want to make. And while you're doing that, as again, I'll be looking in the chat.
No, this is great. And I just put in the chat that, we're at the statewide and national giving event levels, still trying to figure out influencer strategy too. We tested the waters a little bit last year, and we found that we really need to probably stick with the mid, micro, or nano so we can get specific, and so we can identify people that are authentically interested in animals or authentically interested in mental health, instead of just getting someone who's a politician that says, hey, Colorado Gives Day is happening. And so we're refining how we are partnering and who we're partnering with. So this is super great information, I think, at every level, just to kind of consider where you're spending your time. And you're right, someone with 10K followers is going, if they are the right audience of followers to be resharing the message of your nonprofit, that is going to be way more impactful than paying someone at the macro level where your nonprofit's mission may not resonate.
Great. All right. Jordan, why don't you keep on going through some of these other themes that you want to share here?
Yeah, so throughout this entire year, we've been talking a lot about strategy, marketing, where to spend your time, obviously benchmarks and how you can measure your digital fundraising. I just wanted to bring it all back to, since we're talking about influencers and how to engage different segments of your network, what are the different page types on Colorado Gives? So if we can move to the next slide, I'll just quickly go over that for you. All right. So we have a number of different page types, as you might know, outside of your organization page that you can be leveraging throughout the year, and of course, specifically for Colorado Gives Day. So we have, of course, coloradogives.org, universal website, year-round platform where folks can give and raise funds. Underneath that, we partner with 17 soon to be 18 regional champions. So different community foundations across the state that are running their own campaigns to raise awareness for nonprofits in their area, and specifically for Colorado Gives Day. You all have an organization page. So this is your evergreen page that, as I mentioned, should be kept up to date and really reflect the branding and messaging that's on your website. And that's because it ranks real high in Google search. So it's up there with your website when people are trying to find your nonprofit. Your organization page can be updated at any time. So I just wanted to remind folks that, like, as things change or progress, you should be updating that page because it's super simple to do. And then this is where all your donations are flowing through. So any fundraiser page is going to be connected to your organization page. So the money is still flowing through and getting dispersed to your nonprofit. So let's quickly chat about individual fundraiser pages. So I love individual fundraiser pages, and they really are peer-to-peer fundraiser pages. There's a couple different ways you can use them. You, as an admin of your organization page, you can create an individual fundraiser page. Maybe that individual fundraiser page is talking about your monthly giving program and encouraging folks to give through that page with a defaulted form to monthly gifts. Maybe it's for a specific program. Maybe you need to raise money for a new soup kitchen. That can be a fundraiser page. And so the more specific you can get on the pages you're driving your donors to with goals and storytelling and imagery, the more likely they are to feel the emotions you want to evoke and take action. So you as a nonprofit should be considering how you're using different fundraiser pages. And of course, any individual can come to your organization page and connect an individual fundraiser to your page. You can manage all of this through your organization page by going to Fundraiser Tools, Campaign. So that menu on the left-hand side. If you go to the Campaigns area, you have the ability to run reports on any fundraiser page connected to you. And as well, you also have the ability to turn on or off a process so that your nonprofit can approve or let anybody fundraise for you. So there's lots going on here, just even in the organization page and individual fundraiser page, with how you might leverage those to activate different groups. All right, next slide, thanks. All right, so we talked about organization pages, individual fundraiser pages. Next, let's briefly chat about team pages. So team pages are really often used for getting a team together. As you can imagine, sports, marathons, but it doesn't have to be athletically focused. I've seen them used for marching bands, for knitting groups. You know, it can be a really fun way to just get everybody together so you can see on a leaderboard how each of these individual fundraisers are doing through their pages. So it's a great landing page. I will say that if you're choosing between a team or an event page, I love the event page. I think it has a little bit more flexibility, a little bit more branding, some additional tools. And so the event pages can be used for anything. They can be set up just to accept donations. They can be set up as peer-to-peer fundraising pages. It can be an event page for just your nonprofit or maybe multiple nonprofits. So you can allow and encourage people to raise funds for multiple nonprofits through this event. So it's a really great way for you to bring what you're doing in person into the digital space. This might also be where you're incorporating QR codes. So maybe you're having a gala. Create an event page for that gala. Not every person is going to be able to attend that gala, but they may still want to donate. Or maybe they want to create a fundraiser page since they can't go in person. So there's lots of ways to encourage folks to engage with these types of events and team pages with what you're already doing, what's already on your calendar and scheduled. And then last but certainly not least is workplace giving pages. And so these are pages that your business partners would be using. And so we'll talk a little bit more about that here and in the next couple slides. But just know that these pages can be used year-round. Any size of business can use it. So I think sometimes when people think corporate giving, they're like, oh, well, we don't have partners like Coca-Cola, or we don't have, you know, Pillsbury so-and-so isn't our brand partner. It's okay. The coffee shop down the street is just as important of a business partner because they feed and give you guys caffeine as the big ones. So take a look at your network of business partners and engage with them and ask them if they'd like to raise funds on your behalf. It creates a frictionless way for companies to join Colorado Gives without necessarily having to write you a direct check every time. And the great thing is these pages can be used forever. So we'll talk a little bit more about those, but that's just a brief overview of the different page options that you might want to use or might leverage throughout the year. Let me just pause there before I go on to board engagement. Are there any questions from the group just about these different fundraiser page types? Or does anybody have a story that they want to share about using one of these successfully? Not yet. Well, that's my goal then for this year. We're going to get everybody to create a fundraiser page. All right. So let's talk about board engagement because this comes up a lot. And to me, this is low-hanging fruit. These are folks that have already raised their hand. They are dedicated to your organization. So how do we engage them? So board members typically have influence, expertise, money, or time to give to your nonprofit. At least that's my experience. And I know boards look so different for every single nonprofit. So it's good for you to really evaluate who is on your board. Who are these personas? How are they connected in my community and to the folks that I care about? And how am I going to activate them for our summer fundraiser? Because maybe for the last 2 years, they give you a chunk of money every year, but they're really not using their network to help get the word out. So I wanted to ask, before I talk about a few tips that I've seen work well, how are you guys engaging your board members right now to support your fundraising, whether it's online or just, other general fundraising strategies? Would anybody be willing to hop off mute and share how you're managing and working with board members to keep them engaged? Oh, everybody's quiet today. Last class, I get it. It's also a busy time of year. So let's move to the next slide, and I'll just talk briefly about some different things that we've seen work well with board engagement. I think one thing I'll mention before I dive in here is that we know it's oftentimes a big barrier for nonprofits to be able to engage board members in digital fundraising. So for our toolkit for 2024, we are looking at just additional resources to help you guys activate your board members. So some ideas for how you can really get the conversation started is making sure that either it's a permanent or maybe a quarterly topic for your board meetings. So schedule time at your next board meeting to specifically discuss these things. Who of your board members can amplify your next fundraising campaign, and how? So maybe Frank, he's 80 plus, so he's got a lot of connections in the community and he's wonderful and he's an expert at your nonprofit's mission, but he's probably not going to click any buttons online. So how do we get him to be active versus maybe, your fresh out of college, new young board member who could definitely create a successful fundraiser page? Small but mighty. I love that. Kim says we have a mostly working board, small but mighty.
Good.
But I love working boards because they're oftentimes eager and kind of in the mode to just execute. So that's great. We want to be
Kim,
talking about. Oh, sure.
Can I
Go
ask
ahead.
you just when you say working board, Kim, does that mean that they'll take their own initiative to help promote a fundraising campaign, or do you still have to sort of pre-write things for them? I'm just curious, I wanted you to explain what a working board means for folks. That's so interesting.
Well, our board is, like I said, we're small. There's 6 of us. Well, I'm not a board, I'm the executive director, but anyway, they're fully engaged in all the events and all the social media active. Each one of them has their own job. For instance, one of them does the constant contact emails. One of them helps organize the events, all that kind of stuff. So they are always engaged, all but one. I have one fella that
Nice.
He's more of our, how do I put it? He just keeps us inspired with his sweet words. And of course, he's the father of one of the kids that we graduated, and so
well, maybe he is someone that you record a video with. If his gift is inspiring and telling stories, maybe that's a great idea.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I definitely will see if I can get him on camera. He's a little shy, but he's always in the background doing something that other people don't see, but I do. The other ones I usually will give them when they want to take on a responsibility. I'll do a quick outline of that responsibility, whether it's something to do with the event or with the marketing or something like that. I'll do a quick outline and they just run with it. So it's a little bit of work on my end, but a lot less work in the long run because they really put their all in. So
that's amazing.
Thanks for sharing that. Awesome. Thanks, Kim.
Absolutely.
In addition to, defining the roles, which Kim, it sounds like you're doing an amazing job at, and I think is so important because I've certainly served on some boards where I'm like, I know exactly what I'm doing, and some other ones where I'm like, how am I helping? So yes, I think it's really important to define those roles. Also, actually spending time making the board members bring in their devices, mobile or desktop, tablet, whatever they're comfortable with, and actually using the technology. So whether it's them setting up their fundraiser page or just like literally going through like, this is how you copy paste the URL and share it in Facebook, whatever that looks like for the level of expertise of your board members, make sure to spend some time so they can ask the questions up front.
I think a
then-
little hand holding goes a long way.
It does, like you said, work up front, but empowers them in the long term, right? And obviously, hopefully, is bringing in more donations and awareness for you.
Right.
Last note here is just reviewing the messaging with board members that they should be using. So if you have the time to draft even one example social media post, and maybe one basic email that they can send and share with their network, that is also going to go a long way. Again, as a board member, I can tell you to be able to copy paste and know that I am communicating correctly about the campaign to my friends and family is really reassuring. And then also to consider when you're using the Colorado Gives platform, I've seen different nonprofits use it to engage their board members in different ways. So some nonprofits we'll use the example of Colorado Gives Day, that campaign timeline. Some nonprofits set up one board member fundraiser page. It encompasses the whole board. The whole board uses and shares that page. They have a shared goal. Maybe they have a shared matching grant that they're adding to that page. And so that is their board fundraiser. I think that's a great approach because it keeps everything really streamlined. Everybody only has to share one URL, and you can then track all of the progress through that one page. The other thing I wanted to mention go ahead, Michael.
Oh, I was going to say, this idea of writing a couple of sample social media posts or a sample email, that's something that I find works extremely well. And to the point where I sort of sometimes will put these together as like a toolkit. Like every fundraising campaign needs a sort of internal toolkit for board members, even for some staff members. And it has here's 3 posts, here's some images, here's 3 sample emails, help yourself, like that kind of stuff. Just so helpful to have that pre-written for folks to help themselves too.
Yes.
Thanks. Yeah.
Next, I wanted to mention that really on any of these fundraiser page types, as well as in your organization page, there's an area where you can set up a template. You're thinking, okay, template, whatever. No, these are really important and really helpful. So these templates can be used for a variety of reasons. The template at the very basic level is really so that if anybody's coming to your fundraiser and they click fundraise to create a new page, they're not landing on a blank page, right? They have some of your messaging, your imagery, maybe a suggested goal amount. And so they become more successful just by you setting up that template to get them started. So that's the most traditional way to use these fundraiser templates. But I've also seen them used for board members. So you could set up one board member template, and whether you're pressing the button or the board member's pressing the button, you can rapidly create those board member individual fundraiser pages. So just wanted to mention that as a tip that I've seen work well. And then last, but certainly not least, is board members. Some boards have a monetary commitment annually that they are contributing, and some do not. Either way, there may be a portion of your board members that just aren't probably going to be sharing links or doing social media, but they can still contribute. So maybe those board members are activated to have their generous contribution be set up as a match. So matching grants, as we know, are super powerful to use in digital fundraising, and board members are a great potential audience to give you that matching amount for your digital fundraising campaign.
Sarah has a question about who creates the templates. Oh, caught Jordan mid-water.
Oh, allergy season. It's a wonderful time of year. So you would be setting up the templates. So you as an admin of your organization page, you can find the templates in the fundraising tools area. For anybody that's creating a team page or an event page, there's also templates that can be set up there. So whoever's the creator of that page could set up those templates. That's a great question.
This is on our Colorado Gives page where we create these templates.
That's right. So
Okay.
in your menu on your left-hand side under fundraising tools,
Mhm.
there's a fundraiser templates area. And so if you click on that, that's where you would create templates connected to your organization page.
Okay.
If you were creating an event page, you can create a specific template related to that page too. So it gives you some flexibility on creating different templates for different campaigns.
Awesome.
All right. So wanted to just touch base because it was a really popular, topic of discussion in our past few meetings, and just it's a hot topic. Everybody's asking about it. So let's talk about it. How are we engaging business partners? So we, and I may have said this before, so if this isn't new news, I apologize, but in 2023, the summer of 2023, Colorado Gives Foundation did a survey across some portions of Metro Denver directly to businesses to understand what their philanthropic values were, how they were organizing themselves philanthropically, and how we might be able to help more businesses be more philanthropic. Well, what we found was what you might expect. Businesses have challenges and they can't always cut checks to every nonprofit that approaches them. And so that creates friction between for-profit and nonprofits because businesses feel like they're in a locked position or need to choose between the nonprofits that are approaching them. We also know that many businesses do not have a philanthropic strategy or even a staff person to help execute that philanthropic strategy. So they have a big question mark, just like you might have a big question mark about how they should be engaging in philanthropy. And so in some respects, it is on the nonprofit to come to the business to suggest easy and effective ways for the business to help support the nonprofit. And then last fact here is businesses have built-in audiences for your nonprofit to leverage. So again, it can be small businesses all the way up to the corporate sponsors and big guys, but think creatively about who your business partners are. So if you are connected to a hospital foundation, you likely have suppliers and people that you're not even thinking of as potential business partners that could come into the mix and help raise funds on your behalf. What we want is to create, we want you to be able to easily create these workplace giving pages. And so you as the nonprofit are able to create these pages on behalf of the company. What we learned, though, is that it's best if the company makes these pages themselves. And so we don't want all of the onus to be on the nonprofits. We want to empower these companies to be able to create these really easy to set up business pages. And the idea is that they're sharing them with their social networks, with their employers, and saying, hey, we are supporting this nonprofit or these nonprofits this quarter. Will you give back? And so that immediately expands the amount of donors you're exposed to, and hopefully is getting you a ton more new donations. If you're nervous about this or it's really new to you guys, just know that as a default, we have videos as well as how-to articles specifically for the business on how they can very easily create the page and then even set up a match on the page, which has been very popular in the workplace giving pages. So we want you to be thinking about who your business partners are and considering that oftentimes they feel like they're not sure what to do philanthropy wise, or they feel like they may be in a gridlock because they already wrote that 10K check to the nonprofit that approached them last month. So this is a great new approach to engage businesses. Next slide. So these group giving or workplace giving pages, as we call them, allow any size of business to be philanthropic without having to write that check, without having to put up the funds. So they're just leveraging their networks to highlight your nonprofit, bring more awareness and dollars to your nonprofit. These pages allow nonprofits to leverage the current and your current and new partners to drive awareness. And so whether these are long-term partners that you've been with for 20 years, or you're going out there because you really want to step up your business engagement game this year, this may be a great option to present to any of your partners. And then we know from the business perspective that these types of pages and showcasing philanthropy increases employee engagement and satisfaction. So a huge bonus from the business's perspective. And it creates a great workplace culture and shows commitment to social responsibility. So again, without businesses having to do more than lift a finger or press submit on their Instagram post or email, they are greatly impacting both their networks as well as your networks. So it's a great strategy to consider and a really easy page to set up. Let me pause. Oh, okay, yeah.
I'll go back.
Nope, that's fine. You can go to the next slide. So again, we're looking to give you guys the tools and the resources to empower these businesses to set up their own pages. So we have those resources available on the workplace giving page. These folks, if they're willing to set up a workplace giving page, they likely are willing to provide a matching grant as well. You can set up matching grants on these pages to encourage those employees and even get more satisfaction out of the campaigns that they're running. And then, of course, when you are approaching these businesses, make sure you're coordinating communications. So what is actually going to happen once this page is created? Are they going to reshare your posts on social? Are they going to drive monthly donations or drive folks to give in a specific way? So make sure that you're really defining what the parameters are of the messaging and really giving the messaging to your business partners if possible, so that they can communicate and really amplify your digital fundraising campaign.
And also keeping track of what, like which of those activities the business does, so that you're like, as you look back, like, oh, these 3 business partners not only, delivered donations but they also helped us increase our reach. I think that's also an important learning year to year.
Yes, that's a really good point. Not as easy to measure, but exposure in some cases is just as important as the act of the donation itself. So that's a really good point.
Right, and then another framing is that a business is an influencer, is another way to think of it, right?
Yes.
So many of them have their own social media channels, and are eager to show their engagement in the community. So just sometimes just keeping track of like who posted what on their social media gives you just a little bit of an insight into that business partner's commitment to your cause.
That's a really good point. Yeah, we could consider all of these folks we're talking about influencers, right? Your business partners, the board members. And so, yeah, it's really about who you're activating and how you're activating them. So that's great. That's a great point. I think that's all for my slides on business partners. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, and I was this influencer thing is really fascinating because I've often treated board members as influencers. They may not have 10,000 followers on a TikTok channel, but they probably have, a pretty large number of friends, family, neighbors, and former coworkers on their Facebook page. And it's really about thinking creatively about what influence means. So, but that's a great way to look at it. Good. There's a few more slides here. Jordan, I don't know if you wanted to touch on some of these at the end.
Yeah, I think we're good here. I wanted to open it up though. Does anybody have questions about workplace giving, engaging business partners, or the resources that we're hoping to provide in 2024 to help you guys out? Everybody feels good. Everybody's going out to Coca-Cola tomorrow. Great. No, that's wonderful. We just wanted to make sure to remind you guys that these are some of the most effective partners that you can enable through this platform to raise funds year round. And again, specifically for what's already planned on your calendar. You don't have to reinvent the wheel in order to insert that digital fundraising aspect.
Okay, we're kind of getting towards the bottom of the hour. I just wanted to do another quick reminder for my availability for any one-to-one consultations. I've been enjoying several conversations that I've had in the last couple of weeks. I've got 2 more coming up, one this week and one next week. And I think, Jordan, if I'm not mistaken, we said that I would be available through the end of June. Is that right? Okay. So if if a couple of weeks from now you're like, oh my gosh, I want to have a quick chat with Michael about this or that, there's still time to do that. You can reach out to me at my Firefly Partners email address, or if you lose track of that, sure, if you reach out to Jordan, she can put us all in touch. Anything else? You have a few announcements there, Jordan. I'll let you maybe wrap us up, and then we can be done for the day.
No, just wanted to again say thank you. Wanted to mention that we do have a webinar tomorrow, unless you're sick of us and need a break. It's on the advanced features, and we're co-hosting it with Mighty Cause. So we're going to dig into like some of the cost savings of potentially using the advanced features. But other than that, I just wanted to say thank you. It's been a wonderful year, and getting to know you all has been great. I'm so excited for year 2. And as I mentioned, we're going to expose all of year 2 resources to all nonprofits on Colorado Gives. And so you can still engage with and keep learning. Really appreciate everyone that has engaged in this program this year, and just reach out to me if you need anything specific, and please take that survey happening or going into your inboxes tomorrow. I hope everybody has a great day. Oops, sorry, go ahead.
And I'll add no, it's okay. I'll just add my word of thanks. I will say that I've been enjoying following all of you on social media. I've gotten all of your email updates, which I'll continue to get. So it's just inspiring to me to watch the work that you're all doing in the community. And hopefully we've given you food for thought and inspiration as you grow your efforts in the years ahead. So thanks for having me for this year, and good luck to all. Thanks, Jordan, for incorporating us into the program.
Bye, Michael. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank
Bye-bye.
you.